The red sun of Vorthak was dying, and with it the last hope of the outcasts. Taemin pressed his crystal-covered hand against the cold metal wall of the detention center. Through his skin, he could feel the vibrations of the massive engines that powered the Kalari Empire's war machines. The sound made him sick. For 23 years he had listened to those engines preparing for another conquest. Another world to destroy, another species to crush under Kalari rule. He was tired of it all. "They're coming for us," Sora whispered from across the small cell. Her healing crystals, which normally glowed soft blue when she used her powers, were dim and gray. The Empire had injected her with blockers to stop her abilities. They did this to all healers who refused to work on their war projects. Taemin looked at his friend. Sora had been caught 3 months ago when she was found treating wounded aliens in the lower city. The Empire called them inferior species, but Sora saw them as people who needed help. That kind of thinking was dangerous in the Kalari Empire. "How many of us are left?" Taemin asked. "Maybe 300, said Dongwu from the corner. The old scholar was the oldest among them at 60 years. His knowledge crystals had been ripped from his forehead, leaving ugly scars. Those crystals had contained thousands of years of peaceful Kalari history that the Empire wanted to forget. Maybe less. The sound of heavy boots echoed in the hallway outside their cell. Taemin knew that sound well. Imperial guards were coming. The cell door burst open with a loud crash. 6 guards in black armor stepped inside. Their leader, a tall Kalari with bright red combat crystals embedded in his arms, looked at the prisoners with disgust. "By order of High Conclave Commander Rathmorin, you are all sentenced to exile," the guard announced. His voice was cold and empty. "You have rejected the strength of our people. You have helped our enemies. You have spread weakness among our young. Therefore you are no longer Kalari," Sora gasped. Exile was worse than death in Kalari culture. To be cut off from the crystal networks that connected all Kalari minds was like losing half of your soul. "You will be given basic ships and minimal supplies," the guard continued. "Where you go after that is not our concern. If you return to Kalari space, you will be destroyed." Taemin stood up slowly. "What about our families?" The guard's red crystals flared brighter. "You have no families. You have no people. You are nothing." 2 hours later, Taemin found himself on a transport ship heading toward the old mining docks at the edge of Vorthak's atmosphere. Around him sat 237 other exiles. Some were young engineers like himself who had refused to build better weapons. Others were teachers who had taught forbidden history. There were doctors who had healed the wrong people, artists who had created the wrong kind of beauty, and scientists who had asked the wrong questions. Wu Jin, barely 8 years old, sat next to his mother Dayun. The boy's telepathic crystals were just beginning to grow, small and clear like tiny diamonds on his temples. His mother had been exiled for refusing to let the military train him as a psychic weapon. "Where will we go, Mama?" Wu Jin asked in his small voice. Dayun held her son close. "I don't know, little star. Somewhere far from here." The transport docked at the mining station and the exiles were forced onto 3 old cargo ships. These ships had been used to move raw crystals from the mines to the homeworld. Now they would carry the unwanted to wherever space would take them. Taemin found himself assigned to the lead ship, a rusty vessel called the Crystal Bearer. He made his way to the engine room and stared at the ancient machinery. The fusion cores were old and cracked. The life support systems were patched with spare parts. The navigation computer was from 50 years ago. "These ships won't last a month in deep space," he said to Sora, who had followed him. "That's the point," she replied sadly. "They want us to die out there slowly and quietly." Dongwu joined them in the engine room. Despite his age and injuries, the old scholar's eyes were still sharp. "The Empire thinks they are sending us to our death," he said. "But maybe they are sending us to our freedom." "Freedom to die in the void," Taemin muttered. "Or freedom to find something better," Dongwu replied. "The galaxy is vast, young engineer. The Empire has only seen a small part of it. There are species out there they have never conquered, worlds they have never touched. Perhaps some of them are like us." Sora touched her dim healing crystals. "You mean peaceful?" "I mean different," Dongwu said. "The Empire teaches that strength comes from taking, from controlling, from destroying those who are weaker. But what if there are people who believe that strength comes from giving, from helping, from building together?" The ship's engines rumbled to life. Through the small porthole, Taemin could see Vorthak getting smaller and smaller. The red sun that had watched over his people for millions of years was now just another point of light. "All exiles report to stations." a voice announced over the ship's communication system. "We depart Kalari space in 10 minutes." As the 3 exile ships moved away from their dying homeworld, Taemin thought about Dongwu's words. The old scholar had always been a dreamer, always talking about ancient Kalari who had chosen cooperation over conquest. The Empire had called such ideas foolish fantasies. But now, drifting in space with nowhere to go, those fantasies felt like the only hope they had left. "Maybe you're right," Taemin said to Dongwu. "Maybe there is something better out there." The old scholar smiled, his scarred face creasing with lines of hope. "The universe is full of possibilities, my young friend. We just have to be brave enough to find them." Outside, the stars waited in their endless silence, holding secrets that the Kalari Empire had never bothered to discover, and somewhere among those stars, 3 small ships carried the dreams of those who dared to believe that strength could come from kindness, and that the greatest victories were won not through conquest but through compassion. Captain Hyjin Park was drinking her morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. She ran to the bridge of the Earth exploration vessel New Horizon, her boots echoing in the metal corridors. The ship was one of humanity's newest deep space explorers, sent to map the far edges of known space and look for new worlds to settle. "Report," she called out as she reached her command chair. Lieutenant Subin Lee turned from her communication station, her face pale with excitement. "Captain, we're picking up distress signals. 3 ships unknown design about 2 light hours from here." Dr. Jinwoo Kim looked up from his science station. "The signals are weak and getting weaker. Whatever those ships are, they're in serious trouble." Hyojin studied the readings on her main screen. In her 15 years of space service, she had never seen anything like these signals. The technology was clearly advanced, but the ships seemed to be failing. "Any response to our hails?" she asked. "Nothing, Captain," Subin replied. "I've tried every frequency we know. Either they can't hear us or they don't understand our languages, or they're too scared to answer," Dr. Kim added quietly. That made Hyjin pause. First contact with an alien species was something humanity had dreamed about for centuries, but it was also something they feared. Every simulation, every training program, every protocol assumed that aliens would either be friendly traders or dangerous enemies. Nobody had really prepared for finding aliens who were hurt and helpless. "Set course for their location," Hyejin decided. "Best speed." "Captain," her first officer spoke up. "Should we contact Earth Command first?" This could be a first contact situation. Hyejin looked at the readings again. The alien ship's power levels were dropping fast. "No time. Those ships won't last long enough for us to get permission from Earth. We help them first, ask questions later." It took 6 hours to reach the alien vessels. What they found shocked everyone on the bridge. The 3 ships were unlike anything in human space. They looked like they were grown rather than built, with smooth crystal surfaces that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. But the beauty was ruined by obvious damage. Cracks ran along their hulls and several sections were completely dark. "Life signs?" Hyejin asked. Dr. Kim's instruments worked frantically. "Yes, Captain. Definitely alive, but readings are strange. The life forms seem different from us, but not completely alien. Almost like distant cousins. How many? Hard to tell exactly. Maybe 200 or 300 across all 3 ships." Subin suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, I'm getting something. It's not radio, I don't know how to describe it. Like someone is trying to talk directly into my head." Before anyone could respond, the bridge lights dimmed. Then impossibly, a voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was young and frightened, speaking in a language none of them understood, but somehow they could sense the meaning behind the words. "Please, help us. Dying." Dr. Kim stared at his readings in amazement. "Captain, that was telepathic communication. Someone on those ships just spoke to us through thought alone. Can we answer back?" Hyejin asked. "I don't think so. Humans don't have telepathic abilities. But maybe," Subin started working at her station, "maybe I can send simple concepts through our communication array." For the next hour, Subin worked to establish basic communication. Slowly, with lots of mistakes and confusion, they began to understand the situation. The aliens called themselves Kalari. They had been exiled from their home by their own people and were dying in space. Their ships were failing, their food was running out, and many were already sick from radiation poisoning. The voice they had heard belonged to a child named Wu Jin. His young mind was more flexible than the adults, making him better at crossing the gap between Kalari and human thoughts. Through Wu Jin, They learned about Timon, the engineer trying to keep the ships running, about Sora, the healer who was trying to save the sick and injured, about Dongwu, the old scholar who held their group together with his wisdom and hope. They were exiled because they refused to fight, Dr. Kim explained to the captain after several hours of communication. Their empire is built on conquest and war, but these people believe in peace. Their own kind threw them out for being too gentle. Jin found that hard to believe. An entire civilization that values war over peace? It happens, Dr. Kim said sadly. Look at our own history. How many cultures have worshipped strength and conquest? The difference is that these people chose differently, and it cost them everything. The captain made her decision. Prepare the medical bay for alien visitors. And get our engineers ready to help with their ships. Captain, her first officer said carefully, we should really contact Earth Command before we do this. Taking on refugees from an unknown species could have serious consequences. Those people are dying right now, Jin replied. Earth Command is 3 weeks away by message drone. They'll be dead by the time we get a response. But even as she gave the orders to help the Kalari, Jin knew her first officer was right. Earth would have questions. Hard questions. What if these Kalari were lying? What if their empire came looking for them? What if helping them brought humanity into contact with a hostile alien civilization? But as she watched the readings from the failing Kalari ships, those questions seemed less important than the simple fact that people were suffering and she could help them. Dr. Kim had started working with Taemin through their limited communication link. The Kalari engineer was brilliant, but his technology was so different from human systems that they could barely understand each other. Still, they managed to share enough information to stabilize the worst problems. Sora had been brought aboard the New Horizon for medical treatment. Dr. Kim's xenobiology training helped him understand her basic needs. The healing crystals in her skin were fascinating. They seemed to help her body repair damage and even boost her immune system. But the most important breakthrough came from young Wu Jin. The boy's natural telepathic gifts allowed him to bridge the gap between the two species. Through him they learned that the Kalari were not so different from humans in many ways. They loved their families, they feared death. They hoped for better lives for their children. They're not monsters, Subin reported to the captain after her latest communication session. They're just people who made different choices than their society wanted them to make. Jin nodded, but her worries were growing. Long-range sensors had detected something troubling. Energy signatures that matched Kalari technology but much more powerful. Ships that might be looking for the exiles. Captain, Dr. Kim said quietly, I think we need to make a choice. Do we just repair their ships and send them on their way? Or do we take them somewhere safe? Safe? Jin asked. Where would be safe for exiles from an advanced warrior civilization? Dr. Kim smiled sadly. I was thinking Earth or one of our colonies. The idea was stunning. Bringing aliens to human space had always been theoretical. Now it was a real possibility with real consequences. As Jin considered the options, she received another telepathic message from young Wu Jin. This time the boy's thoughts were filled with gratitude and hope. He had learned enough about humans to understand that they were different from his own people. Humans helped strangers. They took in the lost and the broken. Maybe, Wu Jin's thought suggested, there was a place in the universe for people who chose kindness over conquest. Jin looked at her crew, then at the readings from the Kalari ships. 300 lives hung in the balance, and with them, the possibility of something entirely new in the galaxy. Send a message drone to Earth Command, she decided. Tell them we've made first contact with refugees from an advanced civilization. Tell them we're bringing them home. Governor Ho Yoon stood at the observation deck of New Terra Colony and watched 3 strange ships descend through the orange clouds of sunset. After 6 months of debate on Earth, the decision had finally been made. The Kalari refugees would be given sanctuary on humanity's newest world. The decision had not been easy. Politicians argued for weeks about the risks. Military leaders worried about bringing alien attention to human space. Scientists were excited about learning from advanced alien technology. In the end, it was the simple fact that the Kalari were dying that made the choice for them. New Terra was perfect for the experiment. The planet was newly terraformed with plenty of room for growth. It was far from Earth, so any problems would be contained, and it needed more people to help build a thriving colony. How do you think this will work out? Asked Dr. Mi-young Seo, the psychologist who had been studying the Kalari during their journey to human space. I honestly don't know, Jae-ho replied. We're making history here. First time two different species have tried to live together as equals. The first few weeks were difficult. The Kalari were grateful for safety, but they struggled with human customs. Their telepathic abilities made them uncomfortable around humans, whose thoughts they couldn't read. Many of the refugees suffered from depression and trauma from losing their homeworld. But slowly, things began to improve. Taimin proved to be the key to making everything work. The young engineer had a gift for understanding both Kalari and human technology. He worked with specialist Changmin Han, New Terra's terraforming engineer, to combine their knowledge in amazing ways. Look at this, Changmin said excitedly, as he showed Governor Yoon their latest project. In the demonstration lab, beautiful crystal structures grew from small seeds, creating complex shapes in minutes instead of months. The Kalari can grow buildings, Taemin explained through the translation device they had developed. But they need better designs for strength and efficiency. Human engineering provides those designs. The results were stunning. Buildings that were both beautiful and practical, reaching toward the sky like natural crystals but engineered to human standards. Construction time was cut from months to weeks, and the buildings were stronger than anything either species could build alone. Sora's medical clinic became another bridge between the two peoples. Her healing abilities worked on humans as well as Kalari, and she learned human medical techniques that helped her people recover from their long exile. The crystals in her skin can boost healing in human tissue, Dr. Mi-young explained to the governor during one of her regular reports. She can help broken bones heal in days instead of weeks, and she can detect diseases that our instruments might miss. In return, human medical knowledge helped the Kalari understand their own biology better. Sora learned to use human medicines to enhance her natural abilities, creating treatments that neither species could have developed alone. But it was Baksoon, an elderly Kalari artisan, who truly brought the two communities together. The old woman had spent her life creating beautiful crystal sculptures that told the history of her people. On New Terra, she began teaching both Kalari and human children how to work with living crystal. Art speaks to the heart, she said through young Wu Jin, who had become the best translator between the species. When we create beauty together, we understand each other without words. Her workshops became the center of colony life. Human children learned to coax crystal into graceful shapes, while Kalari children discovered the joy of human painting and music. The fusion of styles created something entirely new, an art form that belonged to both species. Wu Jin himself had grown from a frightened 8-year-old into a confident bridge between worlds. His telepathic abilities continued to develop, but living among humans had taught him to communicate in other ways too. He was fluent in both languages and understood both cultures. The humans think differently than us, he explained to his mother Da-un one evening as they watched the colony's lights twinkle in the gathering darkness. Kalari minds are connected like a web, but human minds are separate like stars. Each one shines alone, but together they light up the sky. Da-un smiled at her son's wisdom. The boy had learned things on New Terra that no Kalari had ever known before. Which way do you think is better, little star? Both ways are good, Wu Jin replied. That's why we need each other. But not everything was peaceful on New Terra. Long-range sensors had been detecting strange signals at the edge of human space. Ships with energy signatures that matched Kalari technology, but much more powerful than the refugee vessels. Governor Yoon called a meeting with the Kalari leaders. Dongwu, now respected as the elder voice of his people, confirmed their worst fears. The Empire has found us, the old scholar said sadly. These signals match their scout ships. They know where we are, and they know humans have helped us. What will they do? Governor Yoon asked. They will demand our return, Dongwu replied. And when you refuse, they will take us by force. The Empire does not tolerate defiance from any species. Sora, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. We should leave. We won't let our presence bring war to your people. No, said Taemin firmly. We're tired of running. This is our home now. Changmin, who had become close friends with Taemin during their engineering projects, agreed. You're part of New Terra now. We don't abandon our people. But the decision wasn't theirs to make. Reports came in daily of more Kalari ships gathering at the edge of human space. The Empire was preparing for something big. Captain Hyojin Park, now stationed at New Terra as military liaison, studied the sensor readings with growing concern. "They're not just scouts," she told the governor. "This is a battle fleet. Enough ships to level this entire planet. How long do we have?" Governor Yoon asked. "Maybe a few weeks," Hyojin replied. "They're taking their time, probably studying our defenses." Dongwu shook his head sadly. "The Empire always studies their enemies before attacking. They want to understand human military capabilities before they act. Then maybe we should evacuate the Kalari," suggested Dr. Mi-young. "Hide them somewhere else." "Where?" asked Tae-min. "The Empire will follow us wherever we go, and we won't leave our human friends to face them alone." It was young Wu Jin who came up with the most important insight. During one of the planning meetings, the boy suddenly spoke up. "The Empire thinks humans are weak because you help others instead of conquering them," he said. "But that's what makes you strong. Kalari fight alone, but humans fight together." Captain Park looked at the boy thoughtfully. "What do you mean?" "On Vorthak, every Kalari fought for themselves," Wu Jin explained. "Even in the army, everyone tried to be the best warrior. But here humans work as teams. You help each other. That's something the Empire has never learned to fight." The room fell silent as everyone considered the boy's words. Finally, Tae-min smiled. "He's right. The Empire's whole military doctrine is based on individual strength and domination. They've never faced an enemy that gets stronger by working together. But they still have more ships and better weapons," Changmin pointed out. "Yes," agreed Dongwu, "but maybe strength isn't just about ships and weapons. Maybe it's about something else entirely." As the Kalari battle fleet moved closer to New Terra, the colony prepared for the test of a lifetime. Humans and Kalari worked side by side, combining their knowledge and abilities in ways that neither species had ever attempted before. In the crystal workshops, new technologies took shape. In the medical clinics, treatments were prepared for the wounded. In the planning room, strategies were developed that mixed human tactics with Kalari innovation. And in the schools, children of both species learned together, creating a new generation that belonged fully to neither world but completely to both. The Empire was coming to reclaim its outcasts, but what they would find on New Terra was something they had never expected. A community built on cooperation instead of conquest, where strength came not from dominating others, but from helping them thrive. The Kalari Imperial fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a storm of angry stars. 50 warships, each one 3 times larger than anything in the human fleet, arranged themselves in perfect battle formation around New Terra. Their crystal hulls gleamed with weapon ports and shield generators that could level entire cities. On the bridge of the flagship Dominator, War Commander Vexthalan studied the human colony with disgust. The planet below showed signs of mixed Kalari and human technology. Crystal buildings growing alongside metal structures, fusion power plants connected to living crystal networks. "Contamination," he muttered, his red combat crystals flaring brighter with anger. "The outcasts have infected these primitive creatures with their weakness." His tactical officer, Sub-Commander Korthen, approached carefully. "Sir, the humans are transmitting surrender offers. They want to negotiate." "There will be no negotiation," Vexthalan replied coldly. "Open a channel to the planet. All frequencies." On New Terra, Governor Jae-ho Yoon sat in the colony's command center, surrounded by both human and Kalari advisors. When the transmission came through, Vexthalan's voice filled the room like ice. "Humans of this pathetic world," the war commander began, "you harbor criminals of the Kalari Empire. Return them immediately, and your deaths will be swift. Refuse, and we will make this planet a monument to the price of defying us." Captain Hyojin Park stepped forward to respond, but Dongwu placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Let me speak to him," the old scholar said. "I know his type." The transmission opened and Dongwu faced the screen where Vexthalan's scarred face glared back at him. "War Commander," Dongwu said calmly. "I am Dongwu, former scholar of the Crystal Archives. You may remember me." Vexthalan's crystals pulsed with recognition and fury. The traitor scholar. "Yes, I remember. You filled young minds with stories of weakness and peace. Now look where it has led. Kalari living like pets among aliens." "I see Kalari living as free people," Dongwu replied. "Something our empire forgot how to do long ago. Freedom." Vexthalan laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the transmission. "You call hiding among inferior species freedom? You have made us all look weak in the eyes of the galaxy." In the colony's engineering center, Taemin was working frantically with Changmin and a team of human technicians. The young Kalari had spent months studying the Empire's ship designs, looking for any weakness they could exploit. The crystal matrix networks, he explained quickly as he traced patterns on a holographic display. Every Imperial ship uses them for power distribution and communication. But they're all connected, which means if we can disrupt one ship's matrix, we can cascade the failure through their entire fleet. How do we disrupt them? Changmin asked. Resonance frequency, Taemin replied. The crystals are grown, not manufactured. They have natural harmonic frequencies. If we can match those frequencies and amplify them, we can shatter them like breaking glass with a high note, Changmin finished, understanding immediately. But we'd need enormous power to affect ships that size. Taemin smiled grimly. The colony's main crystal garden. It's been growing for months, connected to both our technology and yours. It might be powerful enough. Meanwhile, in the medical center, Sora was making a discovery that could change everything. She had been treating a human patient with a severe head injury when her healing crystals detected something unusual. Dr. Mi-young, she called to the human psychologist. Come look at this. Through the translation device, Sora explained what she had found. When I try to heal human minds, something blocks me. Not physical barriers, but something else. Your thoughts feel protected. Dr. Mi-young studied the readings with growing excitement. Protected how? Kalari minds are open to each other. That's how our empire controls us, through telepathic domination. But human minds are naturally shielded. The Empire's psychic weapons won't work on you. This information spread quickly through the command center. Captain Park realized immediately what it meant. Their battle tactics depend on telepathic coordination and mental domination of enemy crews. If humans are immune to that, then we have an advantage they don't know about, Governor Yoon finished. But the colony's greatest asset was something no one had planned for. Young Wu Jin had been listening to the Empire's transmissions, using his telepathic abilities to eavesdrop on their communications. What he discovered shocked everyone. There are others, he reported to the assembled leaders, other Kalari groups that were exiled. They're scattered across the galaxy, hiding on different worlds, and they're all listening to what happens here. Dongwu felt hope stir in his old heart. How many others? Thousands, Wu Jin replied. Maybe tens of thousands, all waiting to see if it's possible to stand up to the Empire. Captain Park understood the implications immediately. This isn't just about our colony. This is about inspiring a galaxy-wide rebellion. On the flagship, War Commander Vexthalon was growing impatient. The humans had not responded to his ultimatum, and his sensors were detecting unusual energy patterns from the planet's surface. Sir, Sub-Commander Korthan reported, the humans appear to be charging some kind of weapon system. Power levels are increasing rapidly. Impossible, Vexthalon snarled. These primitives have no weapons that could threaten Imperial ships. But his confidence was shaken when his tactical displays showed the energy readings. Whatever the humans were doing, it was generating power levels that rivaled their own crystal matrices. Begin the attack, he ordered. Target the major population centers first. Make them watch their people die before we collect the traitors. The Imperial fleet's weapons began to charge, crystal-based energy cannons that could reduce mountains to ash. But before they could fire, something unexpected happened. Young Da-un, who had been listening to the Empire's threats with growing anger, made a decision that surprised everyone. I want to go back, she announced. What? Governor Yoon asked, stunned. The Empire wants us back, Da-un said firmly. Maybe if some of us surrender, you can avoid this war. No, Taemin said immediately. We won't let you sacrifice yourselves for us. And we won't let you sacrifice yourselves for us, Captain Park added. We're in this together, but Da-un wasn't finished. War Commander Vexthalon, she called out, knowing he was listening to their communications. I am Da-un, mother of Wu Jin. We will return to the Empire if you promise to leave the humans alone. There was a long silence before Vexthalon responded. Your offer is noted, traitor. But it changes nothing. These aliens have seen Imperial technology. They know of our existence. They cannot be allowed to live. The war commander's words echoed through the colony, and everyone realized the truth. The Empire had never intended to just reclaim the exiles. They had come to eliminate any trace of Kalari presence in human space. So much for negotiation, Captain Park said grimly. Governor Yoon looked around the command center at the faces of humans and Kalari working side by side. Then we fight, all of us together. Taemin began the final preparations for his crystal weapon. Sora prepared medical teams for the wounded. Dongwu used his knowledge of Imperial tactics to help plan their defense. And young Wu Jin, his telepathic abilities now fully awakened by the crisis, sent out a message that would travel across the galaxy faster than any ship. To every exiled Kalari group, every hidden community of outcasts, every person who had ever dreamed that their empire could be something better than a machine of conquest. The message was simple. New Terra stands. The time of hiding is over. In space around the colony, the Imperial fleet moved into attack formation. War Commander Vexthalan prepared to demonstrate once again why the Kalari Empire was feared across the galaxy. But what he was about to face was something no Kalari had ever encountered before. An enemy that grew stronger by helping others, and a battle where victory would not go to the most powerful, but to those who understood that true strength comes from standing together. The first Imperial energy blast lit up New Terra's sky like a second sun. Captain Hyejin Park gripped her command chair as the colony's shields absorbed the massive impact. Around her, human and Kalari officers worked together at their stations, coordinating defenses that neither species could have managed alone. Shields holding at 60%, reported Lieutenant Subin Lee. But they won't last long against that kind of firepower. In the engineering center, Taemin's hands moved frantically over the crystal resonance controls. The colony's main crystal garden pulsed with energy, its living matrix now connected to every piece of Kalari technology on the planet. Almost ready, he called to Changmin, who was monitoring the human power systems. But I need more energy than our fusion reactors can provide. What about the terraforming cores? Changmin suggested. They're designed to reshape entire planets. That's got to be enough power. It's dangerous, Taemin warned. If this doesn't work, we could overload the entire colony grid. If this doesn't work, we're all dead anyway, Changmin replied grimly. Above them, War Commander Vexthalan watched his fleet's opening barrage with satisfaction. The human shields were strong, but they wouldn't last long against Imperial firepower. Second wave, target their power plants, he ordered. Once they lose energy, their defenses will collapse. But as his ships prepared to fire again, something strange appeared on his sensors. Energy signatures were rising all across the planet's surface, but not from weapons. The readings looked almost like, "Sir," Subcommander Korthan reported, confusion in his voice. The planet's crystal networks are activating. But they're not Imperial designs. They're something else entirely. Vexthalan studied the displays with growing unease. The energy patterns were Kalari, but modified in ways he had never seen. The crystals seemed to be connected to alien technology, creating hybrid systems that shouldn't have been possible. On New Terra, Taemin's plan was beginning to work. The terraforming cores poured massive amounts of energy into the crystal garden, which began to resonate at frequencies that reached up into space itself. It's working, Taemin shouted as his instruments detected the resonance cascade beginning. The Imperial ship's crystals are starting to vibrate. The effects spread through the Kalari fleet like ripples in a pond. On ship after ship, crystal matrices began to crack and fail as the harmonic frequencies shattered their carefully grown structures. What's happening? Vexthalan demanded as alarms began screaming throughout his flagship. Why are our systems failing? The crystals, sir, Korthan replied in panic. Something is making them resonate beyond safe frequencies. If this continues, our ships will lose all power. But Taemin's weapon was only part of the plan. While the Imperial fleet struggled with failing systems, Captain Park launched the colony's small defense force, a handful of human fighters modified with Kalari technology. The human pilots couldn't be controlled by Kalari telepathic weapons, and their ships combined human maneuverability with Kalari crystal enhancement. They darted between the massive Imperial vessels like angry insects, targeting weak points that Taemin had identified. In the medical center, Sora worked frantically to treat the wounded from the opening barrage, but her healing abilities were now enhanced by human medical knowledge, allowing her to save lives that would have been lost before. The resonance weapon is affecting our people too, she warned through the communication system. Some of the refugees are getting sick from the crystal vibrations. I can filter the frequencies, Taemin replied, his hands flying over his controls. But I need someone who understands both Kalari biology and human technology. Dr. Mi-young stepped forward. I've been studying Kalari physiology for months. Tell me what you need. Working together, the human psychologist and Kalari engineer created frequency filters that protected the colony's Kalari population while continuing to disrupt the Imperial fleet. It was the kind of cooperation that the Empire had never imagined possible. But the most important battle was being fought by young Wu Jin. The boy had used his telepathic abilities to tap into the Imperial fleet's communication network. And what he found there changed everything. The Empire is lying to their own soldiers, he reported to the command center. The crews think they're fighting dangerous aliens who want to destroy the Kalari. They don't know the truth about us. Dongwu understood immediately. The Empire rules through lies and fear. If their people knew the real reason for this attack, they might refuse to fight. Governor Yoon finished. Wu Jin nodded. I can show them the truth, but I need to get close enough to touch their minds directly. It was incredibly dangerous. The boy would have to telepathically contact hundreds of Kalari warriors while they were in the middle of battle. If the Empire's psychic officers detected him, they could destroy his mind completely. I'll do it, Wu Jin said before anyone could object. This is what I was born for, to bridge the gap between our peoples. With his mother Da-un holding his hand for support, Wu Jin reached out with his mind toward the Imperial fleet. One by one, he touched the thoughts of ordinary Kalari soldiers and showed them the truth. He showed them images of the colony, Kalari and humans working together, building something beautiful. He showed them children of both species playing together, learning from each other. He showed them Sora healing humans with the same care she gave to Kalari, and Taimin sharing his knowledge freely with former strangers. The effect was immediate and devastating to Imperial discipline. Across the fleet, Kalari soldiers began to question their orders. Why were they attacking people who had done nothing wrong? Why was helping others considered a crime? Sir, Sub-Commander Korthan reported to Vexthalan. We're getting reports of refusal to follow orders from multiple ships. Some crews are demanding to know why we're fighting non-combatants. Vexthalan's combat crystals blazed with fury. Find the source of this telepathic interference and eliminate it. But it was too late. Wu Jin's message had spread beyond the immediate fleet. Other exiled Kalari groups across the galaxy, inspired by New Terra's stand, were rising up against Imperial rule. Rebellions began on a dozen worlds, coordinated by telepathic networks that the Empire couldn't control. The rigid Imperial command structure, built on absolute obedience and fear, began to collapse when faced with soldiers who asked why, instead of simply following orders. War Commander, came a transmission from one of his ship captains. My crew refuses to fire on the planet. They say the people down there are not our enemies. Similar reports came from ship after ship. The mighty Imperial fleet, crippled by crystal resonance and divided by doubt, began to fall apart. Vexthalan found himself facing something he had never encountered before. Defeat, not through superior firepower, but through superior ideas. In desperation, he ordered his personal guard to prepare for a landing assault. If he couldn't win through fleet action, he would capture the rebel leaders personally. But as his landing craft descended toward New Terra, it was met by an impossible sight. Humans and Kalari stood together on the landing field, not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners defending their shared home. Taimin and Changmin had worked together to build defenses that combined the best of both technologies. Sora and Dr. Mi-young had created medical stations that could treat wounded from either species. Dongwu and Governor Yoon had planned strategies that used both human tactics and Kalari wisdom. When Vexthalan emerged from his landing craft, expecting to face cowering refugees, he instead saw something that shook him to his core. Kalari, who stood proud and unafraid, supported by aliens who had chosen to risk everything to protect them. This is impossible, he whispered, his combat crystals dimming with confusion. How can primitives and traitors stand against the Empire? It was young Wu Jin who answered him, the boy's telepathic voice reaching directly into the war commander's mind. Because we're not fighting for conquest, Wu Jin said. We're fighting for each other. The simple truth of those words cut through Vexthalan's lifetime of imperial conditioning. For the first time, he saw his enemies not as weak traitors, but as people who had found something the Empire had lost long ago. The strength that comes from caring about others more than yourself. The war commander's surrender came not through defeat in battle, but through understanding, faced with proof that cooperation could triumph over conquest, that diversity could create strength instead of weakness. He laid down his weapons. "I yield," he said quietly, his combat crystals fading to clear crystal. "Not to your weapons, but to your wisdom." 6 months later, New Terra had become the capital of something unprecedented in galactic history, an alliance between species built on equality and mutual respect. The Kalari Empire had fractured as more and more worlds chose the New Terra model over imperial rule. Dongwu had established a university where beings from dozens of species came to learn about cooperation instead of conquest. Taemin led engineering, teams that created technologies no single species could have imagined. Sora's medical techniques had revolutionized healthcare across human space. Wu Jin, now a young man, served as an ambassador between worlds, helping other species learn to work together. Even Vexithalan had found a new purpose. The former war commander now taught military tactics to